As we do every quarter, we asked farmers about their confidence in marketing crops. Now, whether the market goes up, the market goes down, you definitely want to have confidence in your marketing plan, right? So you're trying to manage risk, you're trying to maximize revenue opportunities, and there's a lot of variables in between, as we heard from Jim McCormick from agmarket.net. So let's look at confidence in marketing crops. And first up, we look at the demographics from the standpoint of by farm type. And one of the things that we see is that primarily crop producers much more confident, they are somewhat confident when it comes to the marketing of the crop. The extremely confident group was the 13% of primarily livestock. Overall, though, the bulk of producers right now are in that somewhat confident block, meaning there's a lack of kind of commitment, or they're kind of unsure about how confident they are at this point in time. If we look at that from an index perspective, not just percentages, remember the scale is 0 to 200, okay? What we see is that primarily crops are feeling the most confident about their current marketing plans. Primarily livestock is a 77 compared to primarily crops at 87. And both crops and livestock, the mixed farm, is at 83. Overall, though, they're all below that neutral line of 100. So not a lot of confidence when it comes to the marketing of crops right now from a confidence perspective. When we look at it historically, okay, here you can see in the chart, if you're watching on YouTube, that we've kind of really held in a bit of a narrow band. So if we pick on primarily crop producers, this is people that are farming just corn, soybeans, or just canola, wheat pulses. What we see is that our band has basically been between 72 and 105 historically, going back to September of 22. If we look back to almost a year ago, so July of 2023, all the way to now, we've basically been between 72 and 92. So confidence has bounced around a little bit, but has remained relatively flat historically over the history of our surveys. The most confident the farmers were about their marketing plans is going back to September of 22. Okay. And we've pretty much slid down from that point. We look at it by farm size, and I'm not going to look at it by the acre, but if we look at it from a farm size perspective, a lot of times I will say that the farmer that is over 5 million revenue is kind of different than everybody else. They look at things a little bit, just a different sort of way. Their attitudes are different. Their behaviors are different. They tend to be a little bit more optimistic. But this is an example where they also stick out, but maybe in a way that you don't think. Currently, if you are to ask farmers, how confident are you in marketing your crops today compared to a year ago, it's the largest farms that are actually the least confident. Now, just slightly, just barely, okay? So over 5 million revenue is a 79 out of 200. So once again, below that 100 neutral line. Under 100,000 in revenue, all the way up to 500,000 in revenue, also kind of bouncing between that 80 to 82, just slightly above that over 5 million farmer. It's not till you get to the 2.5 to the 5 million revenue farmer where we see the highest of all of our different categories here, who are a 97. So virtually neutral in terms of their confidence in marketing their crops. Maybe you have an idea. I'm not going to even speculate. Why would the farmer that's between 2.5 to 5 million revenue be that much different when it comes to confidence marketing crops than the farmer that is over 5 million? But that's what the survey in April told us. So an interesting outlier there. When we look at it by going to go ahead here to age, always an interesting way to look at all of the data. What we see when it comes to confidence in marketing crops by age is that age isn't really a factor, to be honest with you. The band is basically from 81 to 89. The most confident group when it comes to marketing their crops is the age group of 55 to 64. And the least are the oldest farmers, 65 and above, at 81, and the farmer that is under the age of 35, they're also at 81. Curious, though, is that when we remember last week we talked about current farm financial performance, who was the most optimistic about their current farm financial performance and the future farm financial performance? It was that group under the age of 35. What they're telling us, though, they're optimistic about their financial health, but in terms of confidence in marketing their crops, it's not like they're not standing out. And so obviously they're looking to get some of those financial profits in some sort of other way than just confidence in their marketing plan. When we look at it by region, we look at the index, we see that Western Canada is a little bit more confident in marketing their crops at this time compared to a year ago in comparison to the East. So the West score was 89 and the East score was 80. So not that far apart, both in the negative, both negative towards their confidence, but there's a little bit of separation there between East and West. And historically, that has kind of been the case. The West overall, if you look back on the majority of the surveys that we have done, I'm just kind of scanning this, almost all of them. The West has always been a little bit more confident than the East when it comes to marketing crops. The other thing that I want to tell you is if you want to see the full amount of these or the full slide decks and the comparisons when it comes to confidence in marketing crops, you can always go to RealAgristudies.com or RealAgriculture.com. If you can't find exactly what you're looking for, you can always make sure you send me an email, shaney@RealAgriculture.com. Overall though, if you look at the overall results here when it comes to the confidence in marketing crops, what we're seeing is it's a challenging environment, right? You heard Jim McCormick talk about how, hey, spring wheat is really, has shown some life here. Soybeans have bounced around a little bit more. Jim talked about on the show about, he's a little bit concerned about the vegetable oil complex as one example. We can kind of look historically where we have been with confidence by looking at the overall Canadian Farmer Sentiment Index. We see how you can see that slide, how things have fallen here. It's the third bank from the right if you're following along online. We have seen the market bounce all over. And so trying to come up with a strategy that makes sense is difficult. When the market is just shooting higher, it's really easy to just hold and sell when I essentially need some of that cash flow. When the market bounces around, it feels like a bit of a falling knife. Hard to have confidence in your plan. When you feel like you're always selling at the top and, selling at the bottom and not selling when the market sort of tops out, you always feel like you're on the wrong side of the trade. It can be very, very frustrating. And it honestly, it helps, it pushes you to lose some confidence. And that's not good either. So I think farmers are, as we look at kind of across Canada here and just look at the overall picture, we see confidence in marketing crops is at 85 out of 200. This kind of right now makes a lot of sense to me. And if it was at a 120 or a 150, I think that we'd probably be scratching our heads and asking some questions here. So I think this is a very good depiction when I compare these results versus some of the anecdotes and things that farmers have been saying on the Thursday show on the Farmer Rapid Fire. So if you have any feedback on this, hey, are you confident in your crop marketing plan right now? Do you feel not confident? We'd love to hear some of your stories and the why of that. If you can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com, it would be very appreciated.